Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And we're back. And if you're a parent, you got to be listening to what we're going to talk about here. This is somebody who can help you in terms of coaching as a parent, consciously coaching. She helps lots of parents. And we're going to talk about something today that you probably have wondered about with your children, how their brain actually develops. When you better understand that, you can be a better parent. And she is Jahanvi Shah back with us. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Steve. Thank you. How are you?
Very well. Remind us the name of your business.
Authentically parenting.
Yeah, and I love that. That's my maybe it's my buzzword, but I want everything to be authentic, whether it's food,
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
yourself. You should be authentic with others, and also authentic as a parent as well. Just be real, right?
Be real. That's exactly what it is.
So let's look at brain development in a child. I guess we'll start with a young child. How does that all work?
Yeah. The young brain is a brain like no other. I'll give you some science behind it. We used to think going back few years, maybe a decade or more, that
Mhm.
there were roughly 700 new neural connections being formed every second in the young brain. And that was staggering enough number. But what we know now is that there is closer to 1 million connections being formed every single second. And if you
Wow.
consider, yeah, I fall off the chair when I first heard that.
You know, and I don't mean to cut you off here for a second. But we always say that our kids are sponges. And now that, it makes even more sense that they're so prone to receiving things, information. Do they know how to process that information? All right, that's a question right there.
Yeah, totally, totally. And really, if you consider that those connections to the brain, is primarily based on what's going on in the environment around them. And it really does become so clear how important it is that we're showing up for that brain in a way that makes sense and in a way that will allow that brain to stay on the path of healthy brain development. And I want to explain that to your audience, what that actually means is like what's being built in the brain with these neural pathways and connections and what that means specifically. So basically the brain is growing in a very specific kind of way, right, from the bottom up, from the back to the front. And in the bottom of the brain is housed primarily, once you get past all things that control breathing rate and all that kind of stuff, you get into the emotional brain, sometimes we call it downstairs brain, where the limbic system is housed in all of the emotional, motherboard, so to speak, is there. Right. So during these early years, that part of the brain is really working to come online. What we know about brain development is that it must proceed in a concrete sequential kind of a way. So if you don't have a solid foundation, you will not end up with a solid structure in terms of how the brain is going to go and grow. And young, especially those toddler years, are really about creating that solid foundation so that in the teen years and the adult years to come, the rest of the brain has a chance to really do its thing in terms of coming online and be a problem solving kind of a brain, be a logical thinking kind of a brain, a relationship focused kind of a brain, and brain that's basically able to handle life's ups and downs. So the foundation of that is laid in the younger years, and primarily via the environment and the experiences that the child's big people are creating for them.
When we talk about the foundation for all of this, what do you mean by that?
So the foundation, so toddlers are really, master, energy readers. I know when your kids you're younger, you see the, difference, when life things throws at them, things shifts little. But, which means, long before they conquer the world of spoken language, they know the world of energy. And that means that the people in their environment are actually the primary driving force of whether or not the environment around the young child is working for them or possibly against them. So the idea is that the human brain is the only part of us that can be 100% regulated from the environment, right? So from the outside, right, the person, I can't regulate my child's liver, but I can regulate my child's brain. And the way that we do that is to really show up in a manner that resonant up, in resonant with the what nature intended for, growing children.
Hmm.
So that manner, necessarily comes down to relationship. So when we can create an environment that is like oozing compassion and that oozing relationship and that oozing swagger, and all of those things that make children feel safe in our presence, then we are walking across this bridge, this brain bridge, via that environment into that downstairs brain, that foundation of the brain that we're trying so hard to grow in a way that's going to allow the child to flex their capacity to be calm, to be settled, to be sorted. And the more that they get into flex that, the more likely those neural connections will be formed that ultimately will create those ingrained pathways for the capacity for that self-regulation.
You're making my brain think about all of this because the energy thing, yeah, toddlers, young children are masters at receiving energy from other people. And energy is everything. Energy is everywhere. This piece of paper got energy. Everything has energy. Been proven. Some guy named Einstein, he knew a little something, and
Right.
others. So that being said, I think back to my kids when they were younger, and you could have had just a bad day
Yeah.
and just, your energy is off. Just like things went on. You're not telling your toddler, they're not going to understand anyway, but maybe they're crying or maybe they're upset or fussy because they're picking up on your energy and you don't even know you're doing it. I never even thought of it that way. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you, my 4-year-old picks up on my energy like anything. I may be calm and collected from the outside. And if there's tsunami going on in here, he picks up on it and I get 10 extra tantrums that day because he knows his safe harbor is not feeling safe, is not feeling respected.
Yeah. Yeah, they're picking up on a storm and you don't know that they're doing that. Why can they do that? I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, that they don't have all this other the stuff that we worry about. They're not worrying about the mortgage, the rent, the car payment, the job, all of that. They just live in the moment. They're just, I'm here, I'm having fun. It's great. Mommy, daddy, love them. And they're so in tune with everything else because they don't have to block out the noise to interpret the energy. They're just it's going in. And then they're processing it. They don't, that's it. And they're reacting.
True, that's so true. And like, we are influenced by so many, society and their norms and what people think and the belief systems we have formed, they're a clean slate.
Yeah.
They're clean slate. They are trying to live their true essence, but in the process, I think, and it's not, I'm not here to blame parents or our parents, who whatever, they did the best they could based on what they knew. But
Sure.
now that we have the science and we have so much research, we get, like some of these things, how that impacts our children's true essence, and how it diverts them to something else, something that's not their aligned way of living life.
Yeah. And that being said, let's look at brain development and your kid's behavior. Why does somebody, or well, let's say you have two kids, why does one act one way, one acts the other way in terms of their behavior, and how does that translate back to their brain development?
Yeah, yeah. So the number one thing I think that kind of throws a wrench into it for us as parents is that we often confuse a child's behavior with intention. They intended to hit, they intended to make life difficult for me by having the meltdown, right? That there is some kind of intentionality in the way that they are behaving. So children, and especially those young children, behave as they do because the brain, in terms of prefrontal and frontal cortex, is not yet fully developed, right? The prefrontal cortex is responsible for logical reasoning, executive functioning, all of that. And without the frontal and prefrontal cortical functioning in a more mature kind of state, you are unable to experience two things of any kind of intensity at the same time and mix them. So for a toddler, if you say no to the ice cream, there is no life beyond that no. There is no like, oh well, I guess I can't have ice cream today now, but I know I'll get it later, or I guess I can have a ice cream now, and I know my mom wants the best for me. Right? There's no mixing of feelings and emotions and thoughts and idea around that. There is only one thought, and
Can
when
I
that
can I jump in and say one thing?
sure,
Basically,
sure,
we're going to go right back to it.
sure,
It's a good thing in one way because we always say that you should live in the present, the moment right now. Forget this, forget that, past,
yeah.
future, now. That toddler is living in the now. Ice cream, now, want. They're not processing the other stuff. So in a way, it's a good thing. In a way, it's a bad thing because they don't have the skills yet to process. Oh, maybe I'll get it later. Or so. I'm sorry. I just want to put that in there.
No,
I think
absolutely.
living in the now for all of us is so important.
Yeah, I think like my kids constantly teach me to, like live in the presence. Mom, stop and smell the flowers. Don't
Yeah.
look at them so much. that kind of a thing. Like they truly are teaching us if we are willing to learn, of course. So yeah, so true. And it's so we're no longer thinking. We have gotten into that limbic system that we're working really hard to develop right now. And so the young brain is controlling behavior in the sense that it doesn't have a lot of capacity for internal impulse control, internal thoughtfulness. So there's science, and yes, there is this energy we're talking about,
Mhm.
and about decisions and all of those kind of things, and we need to hang on to that. That will come, but that is going to be the fruit of our labor right now, right? The more that we can meet our kiddos where they're at, have expectations that are aligned developmentally with their age and stage, and make sure to come alongside those upsets with a lot of compassion. We're actually creating the potential for frontal and prefrontal cortex, to develop down the road. And I think that it's just so important for parents of young children to really understand that the brain does have a big impact on behavior, and that young children don't have the behavior that they have because they're doing it on purpose, or like basically they're not able to control themselves.
Yeah.
And so we are expecting them to control themselves, and then they're not able to. We might think, they're being bad or just not listening to me, where they, actually don't have the skills and the development necessary to meet the expectations that we are creating.
I want to talk about tools that parents can use that you can offer in just a moment. Do believe we have a caller. Hi, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thanks.
Oh, beautiful. By the way, 631-319-6275. You can reach us. You can also reach us instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. And who do we have here?
My name is Sam.
Hi, Sam. Sarasota, Florida is where Sam is checking in from. You had a question?
Yes. I want to know how I can help my wife become more compassionate about disciplining our son.
Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I love it. So, normally I get these kind of questions from moms, and no, like I've seen like a lot of moms jump into this work, and it gives me so much joy when I hear a dad in this work. And I'll tell you exactly what I normally tell my mom clients, who are on this journey and their husband are not yet on board or not on the same page or same book even. And I say always that you keep doing your work and you will see the ripple effect, because ultimately at the end of the day you both mean well, you just have different ways of parenting. And by exemplifying it yourself, you're going to show her how effective this is. And I remember when I first started this journey, I will send articles to my husband, I will send videos to watch, and maybe he'll watch it and start shifting little by little. But it wasn't until he started seeing me and my relationship with my children shifting, how my children will listen to me versus they wouldn't listen to him. There was a lot more cooperation with me because I was listening to them, so they were listening back to me. There was a lot more cooperation there. So when he started seeing that, that I didn't have to do much. He started like, okay, I want what she has there too. I want the same thing with my children. And,
Right.
that was a lot more impactful. So Sam, I really hope that helps you. And I wish you all the best.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for checking in. All right. Can we do that? Jahanvi, can we talk about some tools that you can offer through the services that you help parents with?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the idea here is, first and foremost, I always say to my clients is we are humans, which means that when our child are struggling, and especially our young children, because where their brains are at, we really do want to come alongside and meet them exactly where they are at. And where they are is, they can't regulate their own brain. They really need for us to be there and helping them along with that. And so we want to throw out the window all of the things that have to do with separation, disconnection, right? Those things, that last week we talked about, the timeouts, the punishments, the reward systems, right?
Mm.
Toss them all away.
Oh,
And I have this, I get this, I have this light bulb memory of different things. And I will always remember this one dad from when I first started coaching. And I fed all of those, things to him. And they had a child at the time who was 3 and having meltdowns like for 2 to 3 hours at a time. Like it was very significantly challenging. And I remember saying to him, so no more of those things. And he was like, what? Toss it all out? What are we going to do now? And, so the idea is that you're going to, take a step back and you're going to consider the needs of the child and what they require. And, inside my program, I have a whole module on this, and we won't go through them all because, we don't want to flood your listeners. But the very first thing is to come alongside with relationship. And so you're not going to respond in that moment to the behavior. You're going to respond in that moment to the relational needs of your child. Like, you're really upset. I see that. You're really upset, right? So now I'm hearing them, I'm seeing them, and I'm hearing them. I got you, boy. I got you. I'm right here with you, right? And yet, you're holding that boundary alongside. So you're, moving in with compassion and connection. So, that's, this is not like a lecture or a teaching moment. There's
okay.
time for that. But this, when all these big emotions are going, their prefrontal cortex is offline. They're not listening to the logic you're trying to give them. So there is very little talking there. For instance, if my child is hitting, I was going to gentle hands. I'm going to be firm. I'm going to hold a boundary, and still, be, compassionate towards what he's experiencing. So I remind you that, that's not, that's what the expectation is. I'm not also fool enough to believe that, they're going to deliver on it, right? Because I mean, this is a toddler we're talking about whose brains, just flip their lid when their emotions are, out of control, right? They're going to need more support to deliver on that. And that's why, I tell them I'm here for you, which brings me to the next way of flowing into those moments with kindness and firmness. So, right, and I want to point out, this is not like loosey goosey, flowery meadow approach where we just like erase the expectation and erase the boundaries and erase all of that. We hold on to those things really firmly when it's appropriate, and we do it with compassion. And then we're compassionately in charge, right? In those moments, we will find ourselves swooping in. And our primary goal is to kind of narrate the behavior for the child. Like, I see you're upset. You've got a lot of big feelings. And you will find, whatever, voice works for your child and whatever verbiage works for your child. Every child is so different. And you'll just stay present with them, right? You don't actually need like tricks and strategies to make your child behave well. I truly believe, Steve, good behavior is a fruit, and it will come out of the labor of showing up with your relationship in the moments when things have gotten tricky and yucky for your kids. And
I want to, based on what we're saying, to make sure we save time for, we have Nicole. She's
okay.
checking. checking in from Bar Harbor, Maine. And this almost aligns with what we're talking about here. My 4-year-old son will have a few meltdowns every week. It can be at home or when we're out. At this point, I'm not really sure how to deal with them. So, son is 4. Can you offer any suggestions?
Absolutely. I mean, I would love more, but based on what we have here, totally normal. I want to normalize this.
Okay.
He is 4 years old. He's learning his environment. He's learning how to deal with things. He's learning, how to tackle his disappointments. So I think the best approach, actually going back, I want to tell Nicole, try to, like, sometimes we just look at on the surface. We really need to look underneath the iceberg. We really need to, we're just looking on top. Like, my child is misbehaving, right? That's all we're looking at. But one thing, anyone listening to this here, I want you to remember, whenever your child is throwing a tantrum, a toddler or a teenager, just remember there is a need underneath that's being unmet. And that's for us to figure out, okay, what needs are being unmet? A lot of times with toddlers I see, maybe it's connection. They're just, I wish they would just come up to us and tell us, Mom, I need connection from you. I need time for you. Can I have it? No, they can't. So they're going to throw a tantrum over every little things around them. And we think it's, they're misbehaving, but really trying to, and this is what I teach in my programs to parents, that look underneath how to look. I have different approaches to do this, and to help us figure out what could be going on with my child. My child is not that kid. They're just not able to tackle whatever is happening in front of them, and there's something underneath that is lying, and I need to figure it out. Till then, I'm going to be compassionate towards this little brain, this little soul, and I'm trying to be validating his or her feelings. Like, a lot of times we want them to stop what they're feeling, and but we need to just, like, I get it. You're feeling, for instance, the other day my child wanted something at the store and he couldn't have it, and I was like, I know you really want this, and we can't have this right now. And I spent, like, 90 seconds literally sitting down on the floor with him, holding space for his feelings.
Oh.
And in 90 seconds, like, he got up and, like, nothing happened.
Interesting, because what are we going to do in that situation? We're frustrated. We're, let's say, in a store. You're embarrassed. Your first thought is, let me just grab their hand and get them out of here. And then the kid's, like, dragged, out at the front of the store. But yeah, to come down to their level, tap the brakes, show your energy, because they're picking up on your energy, right?
Yeah.
They know your frustration. And guess what? If you're frustrated, they might feed into that, right? I would think that, so it's like, oh, I'm getting something here. I'm pressing a button. I'm going to keep doing it, right?
I'm going to give you another scientific facts to you and to your listeners, that children cannot self-regulate till they're 12. And that was, like, shock for me. Like,
how do you mean self-regulate?
They cannot, like, go and just, a lot of times say, go tackle yourself and come back when you're, all good. They need to co-regulate. They cannot self-regulate yet. So
wow.
Young kiddos, they need to co-regulate. They are regulating off your nervous system. So if your nervous system, just like you said, if your nervous system is not calm and collected, they are not, because they are not getting that energy, what they need from you. So their nervous system, their brain is not fully developed. They're borrowing yours, and if you cannot come in with this, they're going to blow up even 10 times more.
Interesting thought. It's almost like, and like, we have seconds left here, but now my brain is connecting here. It's in those situations up until potentially 12. It's almost as if they're leeching onto your brain. You are one. We don't look at it that way. We look at it as, I'm the parent, you're the kid. This is how this is going to work. They're picking up all of this from the parents, but we don't know that we're sending that out there to them. Wow.
A lot of us don't know that, and that's why I'm, like, such a mission to educate. Like, when I learn all these things, I was like, I think every parent needs to know this. A lot of us don't know these basic stuff, and it's science. It's not woo-woo or anything. It's science. There's research behind it.
Yeah, I wish I knew this, and I've said it last time. And even right down to 0 to 7, very impactful in terms of future development within their subconscious. Things are going in there and they're being retained. You can't watch everything that you say to your kid or everything that happens, but if you're more aware of it, how do we find you? You're just a wonderful, amazing resource for parents. What's your website?
Authenticallyparenting.com. And I'm also very active on social media. I have a Facebook group. If any moms, it's particularly for moms. So any mom wants to join, it's called Conscious Parenting for Moms. I do weekly trainings, and I'm also active on Instagram. I have like a lot of reels going, short 1-minute reels going for moms, busy moms and parents. So yeah, definitely you can find me all over.
You're the mom expert. That's the mom expert. You are, for parents, you got it, and programs to help authentically parent our kids. And we can find that on your website, right?
Yes. Thank you for saying that. But I tell my moms too, that it's work in progress, like when you know something, yes, you want to do better. As I think Maya Angelou said that, when you do, you better. And it's, for me too, it's an everyday I wake up and set an intention, just because you have the knowledge, I have my stories, my baggages that I'm still carrying. And it's sometimes showing up in my parenting still. And, so it's an ongoing work if you're willing to do it. But when you show up fully for your children, you're going to have, teenage years doesn't have to be difficult, if we set the foundation now.
Yeah, absolutely. Jahanvi, great talking with you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Steve. Take care.
Okay.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.